I'm very blessed. This whole time I'm blessed. Everybody is here. Shemaine is a wonderful person. We've become great friends over the last couple of years. And I've come to know her and her family, Ted, obviously. And she is just a warrior in this fight in just such a passionate and wonderful way. So let's do the right introduction that I can't do. Go ahead.
Well. Greetings, fellow real Americans. God bless you for staying the course for real America. My name is Ted Nugent. I am honored, humbled, motivated, stimulated, inspired, and deeply appreciative to introduce the queen of the forest, like Joan of Arc with a 9mm, my wife, my soulmate, Shemaine Nugent, here at the BardsFest. God bless all of you for participating and standing up for God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule, the work ethic, the man in the swirling dust of the American dream arena, where we stumble, but we get right back up and put our heart and soul into being the best that we can be. You are my people. We stand for and demand law and order. Shemaine fights relentlessly, indefatigable, for good over evil, for truth, logic, common sense, good will, and decency that I think are kryptonite to everybody in our government right now. So God bless you. Stand strong. Put on the armor of God. Here is my wife, Little Miss Dangerous, the aim small, miss small master of the mystical flight of life's arrow. I love you dearly, Shemaine Nugent. Go get 'em, baby.
Hi, everybody. Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Could I get you all to stand up for a minute? This is going to come in handy. I want to teach you a little dance step, and you will all do it. And I can't wait to see Duncan with his kilt doing it. But I just wanted you all to take a deep breath. Real quick, inhale and exhale, and bring your left ear to your left shoulder. Bring your right ear to your right shoulder. Clasp your hands. Take a little stance apart. Round out the back, because I figure you need a little bit of a break. Okay, you may be seated. So I wanted to talk to you about archery and faith. And I want to tell you a little story. Do you mind if I share a secret with you? You promise you won't tell anyone? When I met Ted almost 35 years ago, here's the secret. Now, don't tell anybody. I didn't even like rock and roll. I couldn't have told you one of Ted's songs if my life depended on it. I was a traffic reporter at a rock and roll radio station in Detroit. My job was to talk about the traffic jams in Detroit roadways. And in radio, your job is to talk and to talk to people. So Ted comes in and fills in for the morning crew for an entire week, a whole week, 4 hours, Monday through Friday. Well, when you're talking with somebody for 4 hours, you get to learn a lot about them. I didn't know anything about them. My seatmate, when I would go back to my office, when I wasn't in the studio, the radio studio, I'd go back to my office. Remember the typewriters? Typing my traffic reports on the typewriter. Next to me sat Mitch Albom, the sports writer and New York Times bestselling author. And every half hour, I'd go into the radio studio and talk about the traffic and banter a little bit. They encourage you to banter. And the more I talked with Ted, the more surprised I was. Because number one, I was teaching group fitness classes back in the 80s. Since 1980, I've been teaching group fitness classes, and I didn't drink or smoke. And it's interesting, I had to go to the rock and roll industry to find somebody who didn't drink or smoke. And he didn't. He was adamant. And then he was funny and quick-witted, and there wasn't something that you brought up that he didn't have a comment on. And all you'd have to do is say, "Hi, Ted," and 90 minutes later, you get a word in. You know what I'm talking about. But it was fun. And the interesting thing is, God put me in that position. I didn't even like rock and roll, didn't know who he was, didn't know the words to his song, which probably worked in his behalf, in his favor. Didn't know any of those words. I'm like, you actually wrote that? Anyway, we got married. We first met October 3rd, 1988. Our first date was November 7th, 1988. We got engaged a month later, and we got married a month after that, January 1989. I had no idea what I was getting into. I moved into Ted's house that he shared with his two kids, Sasha and Toby, 12 and 14. So I became an instant stepmom, and I didn't realize that I wouldn't be traveling on the road with Ted. I gave up my job, gave up my life, gave up my world. And in the rock and roll industry, and when you see musicians go on tour, it's a machine. It's a, Scott knows, we do not have a minute. I've seen Ted leave tour managers behind because they were 5 minutes early, which is, you're late. There's no time to waste. Buses don't wait, trains don't wait, planes don't wait. And so me going into this machine, it's like, do you remember the jump rope? You know, you're kind of looking for your way, and then as soon as you get in, you don't want to stop. And I didn't want to ruffle feathers. I went with the flow a lot. I continued to, Ted and I had a child 18 months later, Rocco, beautiful little baby boy, Rocco Winchester Nugent. He was named after Dr. Rocco Joya from Hoedspruit, South Africa, where we would go every year for about a month out of the year and go on archery hunts. And I didn't hunt either. Never was around guns, never was around hunting. And I had only been to one concert before I met Ted. One concert in my entire life, and that was ELO, but Ted said that doesn't count. So I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. I was literally following God's lead. And I ended up opening up my own aerobic studio. I made who remembers the VHS tapes? I made a VHS tape with the big hair, rock and roll step, and had the pleather belt and the leg warmers. I continued to teach group fitness classes, and everything was great until it wasn't. And just curiously, can I see a show of hands for anybody here who has a perfect relationship? No? 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 Okay, so good. We're in the same boat. So I write about this in my book. After I talk, I'm going to be signing some books. And I've talked about this situation publicly, so it's not new. But if you haven't had a perfect relationship, you know what I'm talking about. In the rock and roll industry, it's exacerbated times 1 billion. And Ted fell prey to that. And he had a child with another woman 5 years into our marriage. It's amazing to me that I'm actually talking about it right now, because back then, I couldn't. I would walk around with the big Jackie O sunglasses and just try to put one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. And thank goodness I had my son Rocco, because I had to make him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and take him to school. And I did the best I could. And Ted and I made a commitment to God, for better or worse. Somebody was talking about that earlier. That was the worst time. When you're in a relationship and someone does not want to work it out, it's probably not going to work. Ted wanted to work it out. We went to counseling individually and together. And I'll never forget, when I went to the therapist, she said, "This is a good thing that it happened." I wanted to, no, I didn't. I'm not a violent person, really. But I couldn't understand why. But she had been talking to me, and she knew, if you look up people pleaser in the dictionary, my picture is there. I would roll out the red carpet and allow everybody to walk all over me, and then I'd say, "Can I make you some cookies?" I was just that type of person. So what this did is it caused me to fight. It caused me to fight for my marriage, fight for my family. I couldn't imagine somebody telling me it's not your weekend to have your child. That's not going to fly. So we worked it out. We're still working it out. It's not perfect, but I understand I'm in the same boat with all of you who don't have perfect relationships either. And we were making it work until another tragedy happened. I'm going to play a video. Could you dim the lights, please?
Well, almost 15 years ago, Shemaine Nugent and her husband Ted were living the good life, enjoying each other in this home featured on the very popular show MTV Cribs.
Well, what have we here? Greetings. Welcome to the Real America. My name's Ted Nugent.
We built our dream home, and it was a place that was supposed to be a sanctuary.
We would tour Europe and feel great. We would tour across America, feel great. We would come home, and after a few days of being home, we'd start to feel rotten.
And I kept getting sicker and sicker.
And I remember one time we were in Florida, and it was just me and her, and I was like waiting for her to come tuck me in for bed, and like she never came, and I guess I just got up and I was like looking for her, and she was in the bathroom and on the floor, and she couldn't move, and she was just crying, and I asked her, I was like, what's wrong, Kate? Why aren't you getting up? And she didn't make speech. She just cried and kind of moaned, and it was really scary, and I called 911, and ambulance came, and
I hated to equate it to being in our dream home, but at some point I decided, both Shemaine and I decided, that it's the house.
The house was grossly unsafe. The house that they had ended up having to be knocked down.
There are so many different illnesses that can mimic the mold response, the chronic inflammatory response syndrome in the body. And still today, there's a lot of discrepancy. There's a lot of different theories on how you should treat this. So that's my mission in life, is to try to cure myself, my family, and others, and expose the dirty little secret about toxic mold.
If you don't have your health, you can't do anything. You can't do the things you love to do with the people that you love. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about toxic mold because I believe God put me in that position to share some of these things with you that I have learned. I wouldn't want to wish this on anyone, but here's the sad truth. 80%, minimum 80% of buildings have toxic mold. I would say 100%. You can't see it always, you can't smell it always. It's a feeling for me. I've become the canary in a coal mine. I can walk into a building and go, I can't be in there. And I have learned from fighting for my health to have boundaries. A couple of things, and I wrote a book about it called Killer House. I'll sign some copies after this, but I want to share with you just a few things to look out for. Because people message me every single day so many times and wanted to put it into a book. Pretty much name a symptom. I had debilitating migraines. I was hospitalized, and here I am teaching group fitness classes. And another side note, I was actually once named Detroit's most physical female. Now here's the secret about that. The contest for Detroit's most physical female took place in a bar, and the judges were probably drunk, but I won. And I'm sticking with that. But I went from being Detroit's most physical female to not being able to walk up a flight of stairs. I knew that something was wrong with my body. Meanwhile, I went to dozens of doctors. Nobody could help me. They just said, oh, it's stress. Do you get that too? Take all these tests. And I was taking medication like they were M&Ms, and I like M&Ms. Used to anyway, until they put all the dyes in them. One time I was at the hospital, And Ted had rushed me to the hospital for just debilitating migraines. And I'll never forget, put the IV in, and they try one thing at a time. Wait 20 minutes, see how that works. They put morphine, they gave me morphine. I still felt the vice grips on my head. And the nurse came in, and I said, "Do you have anything else?" She said, "Let me get the doctor." Migraines, headaches, sore throat, fibromyalgia, joint pain, brain fog, asthma, upper respiratory problems, digestive problems, skin rashes. Even cancer is caused by toxic mold. Nobody's talking to you about this. It's not a glamorous topic, but maybe this is how God is using me to help other people. Maybe he's rolling out that red carpet for you to understand maybe you don't need that medication. Maybe your son doesn't need to be on asthma breathing treatments. Maybe there's a reason for that. So recognize this silent killer. Understand the symptoms. Let's put it this way. If you're at home and you're constantly getting headaches or sore throat, or your kids get a bloody nose or runny nose, whatever, and then you travel, you're out of the home for a few days and you feel better, that's a good indication that something is wrong with your house. I'm not saying it's toxic mold, it could be, but to recognize the symptoms is very important. Now, not all doctors will believe you. This happened 20 years ago. Nobody was talking about mold. Probably now they're talking about mold a little bit, or at least they welcome the conversation. They should, but nobody was talking about it 20 years ago. I did a lot of things. I had the house tested 3 times and came up negative. This is 20 years ago. We were in a small town, Concord, Michigan. It's a farming community, 700 people, but now they do have a 5G tower. Imagine that. Because those 700 people need 5G, right? Anyway, it's another topic. I'll get into that. A friend of ours heard about, I used to make chocolate chip cookies for Ted's hunting buddies. We have a sunrise safaris where Ted has hunts all throughout the fall. You can book a hunt with Ted at tednugent.com. But I would always make chocolate chip cookies. I'm pretty good at it. Anyway, I would make chocolate chip cookies and bring them to the hunters. And one day Ted said, Shemaine has got this migraine. She can't make the cookies. And he started talking about his symptoms. Insomnia. I don't think we slept, this might sound funny, for a couple of years in our home. Back when the digital clocks, we would just watch it. Just watch it click. And then you get up and you go throughout the day. It's stress. One doctor told me, maybe you're too healthy. Maybe you should eat McDonald's. I'm not kidding. Dr. Ty, Hanover, Michigan, said that to me. So I became my own investigative sleuth, and I had to try a lot of different things. This is a photo of me with an oxygen mask on, and there is a big oxygen tank next to me, and I'm on a, what is that called? Not treadmill, Stairmaster. And it's forcing oxygen with every breath rather than just breathing. It's forcing it into my lungs. So basically, you're pushing out the toxins. You basically have to detoxify your body. I went to a toxicologist after Ted had told this hunting buddy that, Shemaine's just not feeling well, and we haven't been feeling well, and we have insomnia, and she's getting migraines. And this hunting buddy of Ted said, let me just have 15 minutes of your time. Just give me 15 minutes. So after the hunt, this one day, I'm laying on the couch with a migraine, ice pack, feeling pretty lousy. Ted brings over this hunting buddy. I'm like, seriously? And so the guy says, I'm an attorney. I represent a lot of people who got sick by their homes. I just want to tell you some of their symptoms. Migraine headaches, insomnia, brain fog. And I'm like, Ted, did you tell him that's what I have? Did you tell him all that? And he said, no. He said, just do me a favor, go to a toxicologist and get it checked out. So I went to a toxicologist, got a blood test, and I'll never forget the day that I went in to get my test results. The toxicologist said, brings out his paper, and he's writing things down. I'm like, great, another prescription. And he said, you have 4 different types of toxic mold in your bloodstream, and you have pre-emphysema. I'm Detroit's most physical female. I won that contest at a bar. Imagine all the smoke there. And he pulls out his little doctor's pad and he starts writing it down. I'm like, now what? Now what's he gonna give me that I haven't had already? And he wrote on it, get out of the house. And we did. We walked away from that MTV Cribs home. If you Google MTV Cribs Ted Nugent home, we demolished that house. I have a documentary about that. You can see it at killerhouse.org, I think it is. We demolished that home and walked away from it with just the clothes on our backs and got rid of those. 1 mold spore is 1/100th the size of human hair, and its natural defense mechanism is to propagate 1 million times. I was so sick I couldn't have walked up those stairs. I was the person you'd see at the grocery store with the oxygen mask pulling behind. There is a way to recover, and I go into greater detail about it in my book, but to embrace a holistic approach, a natural approach, not covering up the problem with drugs, because it's still going to be there and you're going to have other symptoms. You literally have to detoxify your body. I remember one time Ted was doing one thing I learned, testosterone helps protect males more than females in this situation. So Ted was going on the road, and I went to the Environmental Health Center in Dallas for a month, where they treated me with infrared sauna, vitamin IV, and oxygen every day. I changed my diet, and I go into, again, great detail in my book. But Ted was doing a radio interview, and he goes, yeah, my wife is in rehab. I'm like, no. No. Can't say that. And there's another rock and roll joke. When I first met Ted, I met his manager too, and I had taken dance classes, jazz dance classes when I was a kid, and nothing special. I was a cheerleader in high school and in college. And when I met Ted's manager, he goes, "You a dancer?" And I thought, oh, I must have good posture. Yes, actually I am. But in the rock and roll industry, when you're a dancer, it means something totally different. So no, I wasn't. Okay, address the physical and spiritual well-being. In my book, I talk about mind, body, spirit. I know what it's like to be unhappy. I know what it's like to be unhealthy. It's so much better to be happy and healthy. You have to address the whole thing. There are other problems that you might have to deal with. Now, the reason I told you that secret, it's not a secret anymore, is because did the heartbreak that I endure set me up to get sicker? The answer is yes. And we know, Bible talks about mold a lot. Leviathan. I have a chapter on spiritual warfare in my book as well because I think it's all connected. Don't want to get into too much of that now. I look at this photo and it means so much to me. Here's a beautiful woman with a scar on her face. She's a warrior. She's a fighter. She's got the full armor of God on. And I look at that fur on her shoulder, sword in her hand. She's ready for battle. It's so powerful and so strong to me. And I realize that maybe it was a good thing that all of this happened to me. I wouldn't wish it on anybody else, but God has an interesting way of putting us in situations that make us stronger. What brings us to our knees brings us closer to God. Am I right? I put together an acronym for you to help you remember. Fire symbolizes the elements that will empower our aim and ensure that our arrows find their mark. Faith, intensity, resolve, energy. Faith, we got to take aim. We got to live boldly and bravely. Step out and deflect the devil's fiery darts. The past couple of years, I have stepped out. I've learned a lot from Ted. It's true. You try to criticize him, and he takes that as a badge of honor. He loves it. Just keep criticizing him. He'll step out. But you want to know something interesting? I don't really post many bad things, negative things on social media. I'm banned on Twitter. He's not. You know why I think that is? Because I step out in my faith more than he does. Esther 4:14, yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Intensity, rise as spiritual warriors. The time is now. We can't wait. Like Pastor Anthony was talking about his friend. I'll do it next week. I'm going to step out. You find somebody's jumping rope. You find a way in, you go in. God's calling you right now. Inaction allows evil to prevail. Our resolve. Embrace your unique gifts. Each one of us have an incredible gift from God. If you don't share that with someone else, and never, ever, ever for a minute think that, oh, I'm just a seamstress, I'm just a welder, I'm just a whatever. You are right where you're supposed to be. First time I went to Hoedspruit, South Africa, at Dr. Rocco Joy's 50,000-acre tomato ranch. He employed a lot of workers. And I noticed they wore the same clothes every day. And here we are coming in with our fancy clothes and everything and our video cameras. And I asked them, do they look at us and are they jealous of us? And Rocco Joya answered, said, no, they feel sorry for you because you need so many things. And I realized that, again, I wouldn't want to wish this on anyone, but walking away from my home, I had a lot of nice things. I don't care. I know what it's like to be homeless. Interesting story, when after we moved out of the house, we knew we couldn't live in the house anymore. Ted had signed a deal with MTV to do a reality show back when all the reality shows were first coming out. I'm like, Ted, we can't go in the house. So we got a fifth wheel. We rented a fifth wheel, and we lived in the fifth wheel on the driveway in front of our house, and we filmed that show. I don't know if anybody see any of those. We did a few of those VH1 shows, reality shows. Recognizing and nurturing your abilities can really transform the lives of others, and it's all about stepping into that gap. Energy. Can't do the things you love to do with the people you love if you don't feel well. We cannot allow our health to slide, because it starts with one thing and you're going to end up with other problems too. I go into more detail again in my book, but here are just a couple of tips for having empowered energy. Exercise 3 to 5 times a week, minimum 3 to 5 times a week. And it doesn't mean you have to run a marathon. Do something, anything every day. And our bodies have this wonderful God-given ability to adapt to physical stress. However, let's say you get on a kick. Has this ever happened to you? You get on a kick, like, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna start running. wow, I lost weight in 2 weeks. I feel great. 2 more weeks go by, you're like, I'm not seeing the same thing, the same results. That's because your body adapted to that physical stress. So you literally have to strike the muscles in different ways. You have to increase the intensity, the duration, or the frequency with which you work out. Adding cardiovascular strength training and stretching. And I want to also touch on what to eat. I'm on an 80-20 diet. 80% of what I eat is pretty darn healthy. 20%, Christy and I shared a chocolate cake last night. And I'm not going to stop doing that. I think our bodies, our lives were meant to enjoy good food, but in moderation. Find the thing that makes your heart sing and you're going to do it more often. What do I mean by that? Well, if I told you the only way you're going to get healthy is that you have to do Zumba fitness, how'd you feel about that? Anybody do Zumba here? One? Okay. After I got sick, I started teaching Zumba fitness classes and ended up becoming an international Zumba fitness presenter, traveled all over the world, Australia, London, Paris, every state probably, and taught hundreds of thousands of instructors and students about healthy living. And this was in my 40s, and I thought, I'm never gonna miss an opportunity to do the things that I love to do with the people I love. I'm gonna try to keep taking advantage of every moment of every day and instilling exercise whenever I can. We're gonna get to that in just a minute because you're gonna do it. But find the things that makes your heart sing. If you don't wanna do Zumba, don't. But find something that you love to do, walking your dog, running your dog, lifting weights, but incorporate cardiovascular strength training and stretching. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. When I read this, I'm like, dang it, I should have had that chocolate cake. But it makes us think, right? Maybe if we think about this in the morning as we go throughout our days, there is a pandemic that we have, and it's not a fun topic, but I'm just going to address it quickly. 70% of Americans are overweight. Our kids too. When I was a kid, my parents would say, go get out, go outside and play. Now our kids are doing this. And I talked about that earlier. We are doing our kids such a disservice if we don't get them outside, get them to play, and get them exercise. I mean, nowadays, some schools don't even have phys ed. Okay, I want to ask your honest opinion, okay? Honest opinion. You have two choices to answer this question. Option A, option B. I want you to be honest. Option A, you would be scared to walk down the street with this guy. He's probably a convicted felon, has 3 baby mamas, and is a drug addict. Okay, that's option A. Option B, he calls me mom. Okay, let's see a show of hands. Option A, be honest. How many option A? He's a convicted felon. You're being honest? Option B, he calls me mom. So I want to tell you a story. Our son Rocco, who is the white boy on the right, played basketball in high school. He was really good. 3-point shooter all day long, 3-point. But he noticed that when he went to the YMCA, he was intimidated by the black kids. He's like, I just look at them and So he asked us if he could go to an inner city school. 70% black, 20% Hispanic, 10% white. these kids call me Mama Shay. Shay Shay. So here's another story. Scott, you don't know about it. Christy does. Pastor Anthony does. So last week I was in the hospital. Scott goes, you have to prioritize your self-care. I'm living proof of that. A lot of things going on in my life, a lot of things going on in your life. Wrote the book. I have an online program. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Ted's going on his last tour. I started having heart palpitations, pain and fluttering in my chest for a couple of days. No, I did not get vaxxed. No. So I called my doctor. It was 8:30 at night, and I told him, I'm like, I'm fine. For a couple days, I've had this pain. Go to the hospital, go to the ER right now. Right now, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be past my bedtime. It's 8:30 at night. I envision being in the hospital. I don't wanna do it. He said, please, go. So my son, Rocco, and his girlfriend, Belle, took me to the ER. And Rocco's friend, Darian, happened to, by the way, all the tests were clear, probably just stress, okay? Nothing, haven't had any problems since. I have to prioritize my self-care. But so Rocco's friend, Darian, texted Rocco. At the time, he was sitting in the ER with me, and he said, what are you doing? And Rocco said, I'm in the hospital with Shay Shay, Mama Shay. So Darian the next day texts me, and he goes, what happened? What's going on? I said, just a little stressed right now. I want to share his text that he sent me. Life most definitely has its way of adding that on us without us realizing. We all have to have those gaps of time we take to and for ourselves. Kind of like a house or a room gets dirty as we live. Then we look up and we notice we need to clean. The more we clean while we're living, the less times we have to go through that overwhelmed stage. I love you. Please take care of yourself, Mom. This is a dance of deception. They're trying to tell us that we're racist. I'm sure there are some racists out there, but I don't know any. Do you? They're trying to divide us. They're trying to distract us with drag queen story time. 5G. I want to know the person who put up the 5G tower in Concord, Michigan, and why. You know those don't have anything to do with getting a better cell signal, right? You listen to Scott's shows and you'll understand. I don't want to go into too much of that, but it's not about. They're deceiving us, and we're allowing it to happen. They're distracting us with the vax, with the pandemic, and with chemtrails. Look at the picture in the bottom right. Who's going after child traffickers? Why do we have an open border? Why is that? Child trafficking is, a couple of years ago, actually it was in the beginning of the pandemic. I don't even like to call it that, because anyway. I went down the rabbit hole, and I had no idea that human trafficking was such a big deal. Now I can't unsee the images that I've seen. And I'm here today because I want to fight for this country. Okay, so, Pastor Dave, this is a bow and arrow. Do I have your permission to shoot a bow and arrow in your church? Okay, we all heard that, right? It's what? This is a compound bow, and it's got a lot of gizmos on it. Scott shoots a what, longbow or recurve? Recurve. So when I got up on stage yesterday and I'm practicing, I'm like, why did I decide to shoot my bow in front of people? Anybody watch our Ted Nugent Spirit of the Wild? I do that. I shoot my bow, so it shouldn't be a big deal, but we do often miss the mark every day, right? It's not my best work. What I'm doing is I'm attaching this release to a little hook on the string, and I look through this peep sight, and I put that peep sight hopefully on the bullseye. A little high. I did better in practice. But you know, we often miss the mark, don't we? Every day. And every day we have an opportunity to try again. I have to know this bow intimately, and I often look at this as like the Bible. I have to know how this feels when I pulled the string back next to my cheek. I have to know when I look through that sight what I'm looking at. Can I get one more? I'm shooting a little right towards you. The Bible, we have to know intimately. We have to know how it feels. Every day it's going to feel different. Every day we're going to be a little off. We might miss our mark in a lot of areas of our life, but we all have an opportunity to try again. Aw, thank you. Aw. Ted had this saying, and I didn't realize he said it in the video, but he always says this: aim small, miss small. If I'm looking through that little peep sight at the bullseye, if I don't aim small, it's like shooting blindfold. We have to aim small. We have to keep our focus on God. We have to have fire. We have to have faith. We have to have the intensity. We have to have the resolve, and we have to have the energy. Do we not? Yes. Okay. Scott wanted me to show you one of my hunting pics. Is this up there? Yeah, there we go. I am a proud hunter. Used to be, I was afraid to post those photos on social media. But we have a very different lifestyle, the hunting lifestyle. We live off the land. During the pandemic, when everybody was rushing to get food, we weren't. Venison isn't fed up with chemicals and steroids, and they graze on grass. I think if more people were hunters, we would be healthier, and there would be less waste. Do you ever go out to dinner and they bring you a bunch of food, big pile, it just waste? We never, at our house, we never scrape food into the garbage, because I have to shoot a bow and arrow. Somebody once asked me, well, why don't you just go to the grocery store and buy it? It's all wrapped in plastic anyway. Well, number one, it's wrapped in plastic. Number two, I don't even know how much meat costs these days. We don't pay for it. It's healthier this way. Venison is not fed up with chemicals and steroids, and it's very lean. That's one of the only problems with it. When I was at the Environmental Health Center in Dallas, I lived at the facility where you weren't allowed to do your hair and makeup, wear nail polish, no leather products, because you get into a new car, you smell that new car smell, that's actually chemicals off-gassing. You're breathing that in. So when they found out, when I'm at the Environmental Health Center, and they found out I'm a bow hunter, can you get me some venison? It was like I was a drug dealer. Because they realized, bow hunting, it's quite an art. It's not easy. It's not like I'm sitting in I get all my camo gear, and I'm sitting there, and I got my bow, and I've practiced, and you sit, and you go, okay, God, cue the deer. It doesn't go that way. And God, while you're at it, can you have the deer walk broadside in front of me, put that leg out, and then quarter turn away? Because I don't shoot, this is not a heavy bow. I don't draw a lot of weight. This is, drum roll, please. Oh, thank you. I was just kidding, but thank you. This is a 30-pound bow. I couldn't find the zebra shot. Scott wanted me to add the zebra. I've killed zebra, kudu, aoudad, gemsbok, white-tailed deer, fallow deer, scimitar horned oryx. It was 35, but now I'm down to about 30 pounds. And I'm not bragging, I'm just explaining. If you ever wanted to get into archery, don't ever let anybody say, oh, you gotta draw a 60-pound bow. Ted shoots 45 pounds. It's all about shot placement. Again, aim small, miss small. If I didn't aim for that bullseye, I could be shooting all over the place. I just have to be a better shot than a lot of guys who draw back 60 pounds. I know a guy that had a 90-pound bow. You don't need that. Okay. I wanted to also share with you, if you wanted to screenshot this, I have a community that I'm putting together. I want to walk alongside you. For those of you who are interested in getting healthy, the number one excuse that I hear, I've been teaching group fitness classes since 1980, and the number one excuse that I hear is that I don't have time. What about 10 minutes a day? I could kick your butt in 10 minutes. So I'm putting together a program with not only exercise, 10-minute workouts, but also addressing everything you need, the spirituality, because maybe there's a reason why we're overeating. I know sometimes I sit down, and I say this to you, in college I was 25 pounds heavier than I am now. I know what it's like to sit down on the couch and look at a bag of chips, and you're watching TV and you go, how did that happen? It's not easy. But there are a few tricks that I can share with you, a few tips that I've learned. So I have a community coming out later this summer. And then my book launch. If you are remotely interested in supporting, I guess you could say, my ministry of helping people with toxic mold, and I know Scott called me and said, we've got a Bards family member that's experiencing it. So I made that call right away. And you're feeling better now. Yep. I said what she didn't want to hear. You need to get out, see how you feel. And she's better now. But on June 22nd, I'm going to officially launch my book. Now, if you join me and purchase a book for a friend or whatever, it's not just for me. I want people to find out about this, because there are still people who don't understand how deadly toxic mold is, and you don't need to have your family sickened by it. I have a friend who, her daughter, I think my son Rocco, his growth was stunted by being raised in a mold with toxic mold. We never saw the mold. It was between the walls. We all just kept getting sicker and sicker. And I'd mentioned this to a friend of mine, and I said, because Ted's son Fleetwood is 6'1", Ted's son Toby is 6'2", Ted's 6'3", Rocco's 5'9". There's no way of knowing for sure. But so this friend of mine, I mentioned to her, we had toxic mold, and I think it stunted Rocco's growth. And she said, you know, my daughter is really petite for her age. Everybody thinks that she's younger. And I said, well, just get your house tested for mold. She goes, oh no, I know we have mold. I've seen mushrooms growing on the carpet. Here's the sad part of this. Fast forward 2 years, her 14-year-old daughter has bone cancer. Not kidding. She went through 30 chemo treatments. This is serious stuff. I do believe there's a spiritual warfare component to this, and I talk about that in the book. But I wanted to share that with you. Okay. Also have to tell you, even though I'm banned on Twitter, I know, thank you, no. I don't know what I did to this day. I posted a funny meme, or it was I was lip syncing to, there's a song, what you doing, where you at? I don't sing. So I pretend like I have a phone up to my face, and this was in July of 21, and the text was, I never said anything, the text was, calling President Trump to ask when he's coming back. Boom, I'm out of here. I got banned. I've tried to appeal a dozen times. Even with Elon, they're not having it. So I am now on, I have a show called Faith and Freedom, Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. on Real America's Voice. It is also on Rumble. And I do have a Rumble channel, but there's a Real America's Voice Rumble channel where they show it live as well. So I have great guests, Scott Kesterson. And I have had Charlie Kirk and Kirk Cameron. This Pastor Dave's coming on soon. There's this guy that plays the guitar. He's been on a couple times. I need to get Pastor Anthony on soon. Okay, so we're gonna dance. Everybody stand up. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Everybody stand up. I'm gonna show you some steps. Don't worry, you can all do this. No bones will be broken, okay? Really, it's just an excuse. We're gonna do a little bit of stretching. You've been sitting there, so I'm gonna walk you through some stretches. You know what a verse is versus a chorus? Everybody knows? So I'm gonna play a video with words. I want you all to sing. I want you all to sing as loud. Just blow the roof off. But while we're doing that, we're gonna do some stretches, okay? On the choruses, let's see if you can handle this. Are you ready? It's kind of an intense dance move. You put your hand up. Right hand up. The other right. Side to side. Look at you. Look at you. Let's try it with the left hand. Look at you. Isn't that awesome? Okay, I'll be honest, that was easy. This is complicated. Are you ready? Got a lighter? No, yeah. Okay. Step to the right, step together. Step to the left. Gosh, you guys are good. I'm gonna make it more difficult. Are you ready? Even more difficult. Ready? Okay. Here we go. Step together, clap. Look at you, you're a natural. Look at you, okay, you got it. So on the verses, we're gonna go through that, or I'm sorry, on the choruses, we're gonna go through that. The verses, we're gonna stretch. I want you to sing like there's no tomorrow. The words will be on the screen. Okay. Can I take, yeah, I'm gonna take this off because I sing it intently.
Have you ever thought that the world has kind of lost its way? Crazy as it seems, yeah, I know it's gonna be okay. Ooh, yeah, it doesn't scare me, it's temporary. There's something better, we got forever. And it won't be long, cause we know our help is on the way. The way, so keep your head up. Jesus is coming back, Jesus is coming back. No, don't you give up. Jesus is coming back, Jesus is coming back. And when the Jesus is coming back.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to sign some copies of my book. Thank you.
Churches